welcome to another Zoom High Drama. Do we love the virtual shows that we're going to be hopefully seeing and not seeing and have seen, like coming up, Sex, Addiction, and Love from the Jewish Women's Theater. And here we have Ronda Spinak and Eve Lederman to talk about it. So I love the title. Ooh, we need escape right now.
Well, thank you, Eva, first of all, for inviting us onto the show. We're really excited to be here and to meet you for the first time. Yeah, it's interesting. We programmed Sex, Addiction, and Love to be our second salon show of our season, which was supposed to open in March. And 2 days before opening, the shelter-in-place order came down in California, which is where we're based, and everything stopped. And we waited, but we had this beautiful show that had been rehearsed and curated and edited, ready to go. So like, what's a theater to do, right? And so we just recently were able to film it with good social distancing and being very careful in our small space in Los Angeles. And we're ready to launch it through three Zoom performances at the end of June, the 27th, the 28th, and 29th. Mindful of our East Coast fans, the Sunday the 28th, it'll actually be 4 p.m. in Los Angeles, so it'll be 7 p.m. in New York and across the East. So yeah, and when we programmed it, we really wanted a light show because we had just done a salon show on mental illness, which was very serious pieces. So we thought, oh yeah, let's do sex, let's do addiction, let's do love. And anyway, Eve submitted a piece. She's worked with us several times in several other shows, Family Secrets and It's a Life. And this piece called Donna is just a beautiful, beautiful story about friendship and love and sustained friendship over time. And which is love, right? Friendship love is a kind of love. And that's one of the things that we do in our shows is we try to look at the theme from many different angles. So we have this fabulous piece from this wonderful writer performer Joshua Rubin Silverstein, who wrote a piece about being 14 and wanting to have sex for the first time. And then we have a piece about a young Persian woman who's gotten married and done everything she's supposed to do, and then gets married and realizes she's not so sure she loves her husband. So she goes to France on this yearly, like a classroom in Paris. And actually being apart from him, she falls in love with him. And so there's various different stories from 12 wonderful writers, including a couple of songs, original pieces. But I want to get back to Eve and her piece. You know, I'd love to hear from her because I actually don't know, like, when did she write the piece and what was she thinking when she wrote the piece? And, you know, how did seeing a title like Sex, Love, and Addiction fit for her to submit the piece? So Eve, please.
Oh, thank you, Rhonda. Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, as Rhonda mentioned, I've had a few pieces in her shows, and I'm really honored to be a part of them. So I actually wrote this piece for The Moth originally. If you know the storytelling improv group in New York, they perform in bars around the city, and now they actually have a show on NPR. So that was the genesis of it, and I've written probably a dozen monologues like over the past decade or so. And I saw this topic and thought it would be a really good fit. And then I worked with Rhonda to kind of bring it alive from a monologue to more of a two-hander. So as she said, the title is called Donna. It's about a best friend of mine who I played softball with and went on bike rides. And we had this unpredictable liaison one night I won't elaborate on. She had a stint as a dominatrix for a bit, and then she was a physical therapist, and I was at her house hanging out, drinking wine, watching movies, and then suddenly things took a turn, and I was on this precipice as to which way to go and what to do and how to act on it. And so Ronda really brought it alive by bringing in another actress to play Donna. And so there's dialogue back and forth between us rather than just the monologue going on in my head. Yeah, and that's how it originated. I like to tell stories that really kind of harken back to the past and bring in my grandmother and my 6th grade teacher and reminisce about things and then bring those into the present. So I think my favorite line from it is, as I'm in Donna's doorway trying to figure out what to do, I think back to my Jewish grandmother. And on her deathbed, I wasn't married at the time, and this actually happened like probably my late 20s, but you know, everyone in my family expected me to be married and have kids by then, especially my grandmother. And so I'm sitting on her deathbed, holding her hand, soft and warm, and murmuring to her, and she whispers to me, you know, I'm thinking she's going to tell me to stick to the faith and keep kosher and marry a Jewish man. And she says, Bubala, I just want you to know it's okay if you're a lesbian. And so I am not, but with that thought, I then take a leap into Donna's arms.
One of the things, if I may, Eve she's a beautiful writer. There's both heart and humor in her work. And so there's beginning of the story, there's just a lot of laughs, and then it takes a serious turn, even beyond this one incident, kind of tilting back to the friendship that was before, and ending with this very, very moving story of something that they share. And so you go really from laughter to tears. And I love that about Eve's writing. There's also this wonderful view of the world. She pulls you along in her world. And so I would hope people would come and join us on this Zoom to see not only Eve's stories, but the other 10, 12 stories that we have in this wonderful show.
You were making me think of something. Just like sugar helps the medicine go down, does humor help the tragedy go down?
Exactly.
Is this what you're doing with your 12 plays?
Well, like I said, this show was actually programmed pre-COVID. Like, who knew that this show was going to be perfect at this time? Like, people are really tired of, I mean, the world is in an uproar. It's upside down. So, you know, one of the things that I think that people relate to is love. I mean, ultimately, although we do have also a piece about sex addiction from an Orthodox woman, and we have beatboxing as the heartbeat and the rhythm of addiction, kind of metaphorically. So, but even with that, what is she still striving for? She's striving for love. So at the end of the day, even though these pieces are funny and about many different angles to sex addiction and love, it's ultimately a show about love and connection.
Well, I can't wait.
But funny. Sorry.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing another play by Eve, and this one I'm going to like a lot. I know it. So thank you very much. Oh,
thank you very much.
Any last thoughts you want to say, Eve or Rhonda?
I would just piggyback on that to say, you know, all the writers and actors got a chance to see the whole show on tape beforehand, and to me, there's a unity to it, which is what we're striving for at large as well. I mean, to hear all these diverse perspectives and stories, and be able to relate to everyone through a common theme, that was very uplifting.
Thank you, Eve. Yes, and thank you, Eva. Really, really appreciate you inviting me here this morning to share our work.
Oh, please, I'm just happy that you were able to show your work somehow, because it breaks my heart. All these shows in New York and everywhere else that we're on the verge or just starting and finally getting their foot in the doorway, and then it all just shuts down, and who knows when they're going to come back. And it's like, oh, it just upsets me.
I'm happy to comp you a ticket to our Zoom event and come and see what we do. I think you'll be surprised. It's an intersection between storytelling and theater. So
I'm sorry, which theater is this? Where is your theater?
it's called Jewish Women's Theater, and we're out of Santa Monica, California, but
Okay.
we travel everywhere. We were in the South last November. We've been at the 92nd Street Y. We've performed our Persian show there a few years ago.
So this particular show was in New York, the one you saw, Eva?
No, this particular show is brand new, and we're just releasing it on Zoom.
Okay.
June 27th, 28th, and 29th. That'll be the
Alright.
first opportunity that people beyond our community can see it.
Okay, and now I'm going to just read, Leslie DiLeo saw this very timely play. She wrote this review in May 29th, and George Floyd died May 25th. Was thinking about Kent State, and then I'm reading her review, and I'm like, wow, okay. So this is Leslie DiLeo reviews Days of Possibility, written by Rich Orloff, created in collaboration with the New Circle Theater Possibility. Days of Possibilities traces one college's response to the Vietnam War, based on letters and interviews with over 100 alumni of Oberlin College in Ohio. The play explores the trajectory of early civilized protests through the campus-wide activities after the killings on May 4th, 1970, of 4 unarmed students by National Guardsmen during a protest at nearby Kent State University. The play weaves together monologues and story theater scenes as it tells the true stories of the full range of students, including the radical, the cautious, the conservative, and the chronically undecided. Because the play uses snippets of dialogue and moves quickly from monologues to newscasts, letters, and oral commentary, it's particularly well set up to work via Zoom. The beauty of Days of Possibilities is tumultuous and divisive times in America. Sound familiar? The political becomes personal and the personal becomes universal in this well-ordered, touching, and thought-provoking theater piece performed with heart and genuineness. Its 4 theater companies and 1 high school have posted their performances. It's a possibility. It's available through June 30th. And she gives this a happy face.
I went to Oberlin, so I can understand how much tumult that must have been. I went there from California originally, and I had not ever had an intellectual experience until I did, and I got there and everyone was banning the bomb and singing Kumbaya, so it was really quite an experience.
Now we're going to be more lighthearted and do The State.
The State was a well-known sketch comedy troupe that appeared on MTV from 1993 until 1995, based loosely on Saturday Night Live and Monty Python, although maybe a little less sophisticated. The 11 members of the cast, who had been working together since high school, wrote and performed material designed specifically for MTV's adolescent audience. Since then, they have gone on to play an important role in many, many memorable projects, both as solo performers and in subsequent collaborations with one another. This time, Zoom with the State was an interactive online reunion featuring 10 of the State's original members. It was thoughtfully conceived as a way to commemorate the troupe while encouraging their fans to make contributions to both the NAACP, which received the money raised by an auction of memorabilia from the TV show, and the California Immigrant Resilience Fund, which received the proceeds raised by ticket sales. As cast member Michael Patrick Jan said so succinctly, we all felt we needed to do something, and as a comedy group of advancing age, a Zoom event is very bursitis friendly. I think that's really funny if you get it, and it worked very, very well. They raised over $85,000 for charity. Now, they may be broadcasting this show again, but it's not sure yet, and they might do a second version since this one was so successful. At any rate, $85,000 for charity. That itself is worth a happy face.
And I know Billy wanted to talk about the National Queer Festival That you can still see. That's still on, isn't it? It's going
Yeah.
on till June 20 something.
Thank you, Eva. So it's time for National Queer Theater's main yearly offering, the Criminal Queerness Festival during Pride Month. The festival devotes a full month to plays written by playwrights from countries that criminalize queerness, sometimes with the death penalty. This year's festival also offers panel discussions and videos exploring LGBTQ life and activism in places with fundamentally different facts on the ground than we have in the US, the Middle East and East Asia, for example. I encourage our viewers to examine the offerings at the URL on the screen. I wrote extensively about last year's festival, which was a life-changing experience for me. One of the many things I learned was that LGBTQ folks beyond Europe and the United States live much differently from us. That wasn't a surprise, but therefore the demands for their culture require a unique response to life as a queer person or activist. American LGBTQ activism cannot simply transfer to Africa, China, or the Middle East, for example. I had never given much thought to LGBTQ life or activism beyond New York, London, or Berlin, but the Criminal Queerness Festival introduced me to it, expanding my horizons greatly. National Queer Theater, under the artistic direction of the brilliant and insightful Adam Rubin, is probably the most important theater company specializing in LGBTQ issues in the country right now. I say this because I have observed Mr. Rubin's uncanny ability to choose excellent art as art to showcase, which at the same time addresses cutting-edge perspectives from the queer experience. I strongly encourage all our viewers, but especially our LGBTQ audience, to check out this magnificent festival. It's truly historic. It runs online from June 13th through June 29th. So back to you, Eva.
Oh, thank you, Billy, for that. BIna, you have something you want to share with us?
I wrote it before George Floyd, but I'm going to read. I wrote it for COVID, but I think it's relevant. Breathe. Death is for real. It will come. Don't wait for it. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Live your life. Live, live, live. The way you want, the way you like. Do whatever gives you some joy, a little joy or a big joy, a little pleasure or a huge pleasure. Anything which makes you laugh, anything you say which makes others laugh. Little things like to say hi to someone you like or to someone you don't even know, to share a conversation, to laugh together, to read a book, to read another book, and another. Writers write books for you to read. Read, read, breathe, and read. Take a walk, to think, to reflect, to enjoy. Give your affection, your love, your concern to someone who needs it. Share your life with someone who's lonely. Just a little thing to give, to share. Forget about the big things. You wonder and you worry. You worry that the others have big things and you don't. Forget about that forever. What others have is not your concern. Don't waste your precious time on little things, useless things. Time is the most precious and sacred thing. Time is like death. Time never comes back, never. It's like the death of a parent. How you wish that they will come back, even for one fraction of a second. But no, it's not written that way. Destiny has its own rule. So does death. Time also dies. Time has a life, just like a human being. Spend your time wisely. Enjoy what you have. That's all. This is a bad concept taught to you to keep you down. What you have is the most valuable. Enjoy everything you have, everything given to you, little or big. All is a gift. Breathing is a gift. Breathe, breathe. Be grateful for the gift of God. The life living joy, pleasure, laughter, knowledge, the search for knowledge, curiosity, search, sense of fulfillment with little joys goes a long way. Breathe, 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 live. Forget about the future. Only God knows what will happen. Only God knows what is coming your way. Expect the best. You deserve it. Live now. Live here and live now. Future might not be there. COVID-19 proved that. It's like there is no future. If it exists, it's precarious to say the least. Corona proved it to the world that future is an unknown mystery. Our breath is the most cherished property we have. We have to protect it at any cost. It's a gift, it's a treasure, it's a big gift. Keep breathing, breathe, breathe, breathe.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you.
What made
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
made this so heartbreaking? I'm crying because
I know, me too. I couldn't read it.
George Floyd can't breathe, and there's so many
Yeah.
other African Americans out there because of this stupid prejudice. They were robbed of their breath. They were robbed of the joy. They were robbed of all these things you say that you should be able to do. And just
Yeah.
because of their bloody color of their skin, they are deprived of a future. And it just infuriates me and makes me so angry and upset. And
Yeah, and when I watched the video, which was a very big mistake of George Floyd, because I can't take it out of my head, and everybody, I think, saw him taking his last breath right on video. And when he said the word mama, in my culture, they always told us, when the time comes for you to die, you see your dead relatives. They come to receive you. You see them. And when he said, Mama, I knew he was going to die. It was too upsetting. I just knew.
That picture broke my heart.
But I've gone back to BroadwayCon from January, and there were a lot of panels on inclusion. And I'm hoping I'll have the whole thing on YouTube. But I'm going to be showing various panels during the run of High Drama, in the coming weeks ahead. The one we're showing this time is called Dark Views: When People of Color Review the Great White Way, with Keith Price as the moderator and the panelists Jose Solis, Linda Armstrong, and Irene Gandy.
But what I would really encourage you to do is to speak about it. Because one of the things, you said something key, and it's that we don't talk about this in theater. Theater is racist, is sexist, and we don't talk about it. People just look the other way. But what you were doing by telling your coworker about it, and I would recommend, if it doesn't put your own work in jeopardy, go to the people who held that audition and call them out for it on social media. Tell people about it. Tell people that what they're doing is wrong, but please do not forget to take care of yourself. Because that anger that you felt right now, I feel it every day. And it's very damaging for us. So try to find a healthy balance where you are, calling out people who are doing active wrong in the world, while also just protecting yourself, because you're worth too much to let, just like a bunch of racist assholes win.
Wow, and with that, thank you. And all of us are available on social media. My podcast is Keith Price's Curtain Call. I can't tell you how happy and joyful I am right now to be able to have done this, because this is one of those things on my box that I wanted to check, to sit and moderate a panel with people that I love and adore, as well as talking about something that's very important to me.
I just want to say what Jose said. Everyone in this room was a part of theater, no matter what color of it. Everybody's a part of theater. So, because
everybody's here. And so with that, we will say thank you and have a great time at BroadwayCon.
Mark, you haven't had a chance to talk much. Do you have any thoughts about what you've seen, what's going on, anything?
Again, I've seen very little theater. I mean, to me, it seems like the most interesting theater going on now is really in the streets. And, you know, like all the protests that might hopefully lead finally to some kind of systemic reform, because that's really the only way that this could change for the future. Part of what I was doing in school, we had a special Zoom conference for all the students and teachers to deal, I teach ESL, so to deal in a way that the students could understand, hopefully, about Black Lives Matter. And for part of it, we got into a discussion of the whole beginning of the police force in New York, and I Googled it. It was 1845, relating to a perceived upswing in crime by Irish immigrants that needed to be put down. So the whole idea is that the police have never been to protect the ordinary people. They've always been to protect the interest of the rich and to put down the, you know, the interests of immigrants and Black people who are systematically denied protection. And
you know what's interesting, what you just said, the cops to put down the Irish immigrants, and then all the cops became Irish.
Racism is not only in the police. The racism is everywhere. There's so much racism. People hate the religious racism, the racism for people of color. People hate the Jews, then they hate the Muslims, then the Latinos. I mean, this is like in many, many departments, different kind of racism. You know, look at the fashion department. You know, like this Vogue lady, Wintour, she admitted it. She admits that she gave no space to the Black designers or writers or people on her Vogue magazine for 50 years.
It seems to be this built-in thing to don't trust the others, don't trust the others. And I do believe that some of that is hardwired, but we're now living in a situation in which all of the others, and we all need to live together. And that absolutely has to change.
Now I want to do the ending. There's all these, you know, if you need some little escapism or whatever, here are some of the virtual events that, you know, to remind you of all the virtual events going on. Our next show is going to be on the 4th of July. Bye!